Well, hey guys, good evening. Happy Saturday night. It is the last Saturday of February. And it sounds like audio is working A-OK. Just double checking that before we get started. If you guys have any questions about, of course, the weather, about anything in general, let me know. Comment down below. We'll be talking about weather for the next 10 to 20 minutes. Really quiet. Of course, this is the last weekend of February, the last weekend of rodeo. Rodeo season wraps up tomorrow. And it's also an interesting month. Of course, it's February. It's the last full month of winter, but it's also a leap year. And we have an extra day on our calendar this year, which is next Thursday, February 29th. That happens once every 4 years. If you know anybody that has a birthday on that day, let me know. It'd be great to do a story on that. We're always looking for good stories, and I think that'd be a great one to highlight for Leap Day, as it is next week, and this will happen once every 4 years, of course. Okay, so let's talk about the weather. This time of year, it starts to warm up a little bit, and that's what we've seen, right? Temperatures in the 70s and 80s today. In the last 7 days, really, it's been pretty warm. Mornings have been a little cool, a little chilly here and there, but not as cold as where they need to be in February based on averages. And this month has been pretty dry. I don't know what our month-to-date rainfall is. I can check. Give me a second. So we can double check that before we get started. So here's today's number: 77 for a high, 47 for a low. Today's rain 0. Month-to-date rainfall. So the first 4 to 5 days of February this month was pretty wet, but ever since then it's been dry. It's been clear, and it's been pretty warm, and temperatures have, recovered way above average for, winter. We're in the middle of winter, and we're looking at temperatures in the 70s and 80s, and this should be updated. So far this season for the winter, 2023-24, we've seen 9 total freezes since December 1st. Last year, San Antonio picked up 10 freezes last winter. The average is 15, so we're near that, but we're below normal. So while it has been wet, it hasn't been as cold compared to average winters. The average last freeze is actually today. Of course, when you look at years of data, all the way back into the early 1900s and late 1880s, which, by the way, that's when we have records dating back to about 1885 in San Antonio. The latest freeze ever recorded in that span of about 150 years is April 8th, 1987. So I know it's almost springtime. A lot of the bluebonnets have been blossoming. So if you, the thing is, it's possible we see freezes in March and early April. Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No. The way it's been shaping up recently, it's been so warm, and it looks like an early onset to spring. Now, again, it can still get chilly to cold in March and April. But right now, the trend has been warmer than average, and I think, in the next couple of weeks, if you don't see any strong cold fronts move through, I think it's safe to say that we're looking at a pretty early onset to the new season, and winter officially ends on March 19th. That is the first official day of spring, the vernal equinox in the northern hemisphere. Okay, so that's the update on the winter. Let's talk about this right here. Pollen count. I've been feeling something in the air. I've been sneezing so much the last 4 or 5 days. It's been crazy. But despite me sneezing, molds aren't bad. It's been fluctuating from moderate to light, but nothing's been heavy. We haven't seen much mountain cedar in the last 2 to 3 weeks. Because of such a warm February and hardly any cold fronts, we have seen fronts move through it. They've helped, gusty winds, but they really haven't brought down polar Arctic air, recently. And as a result, we don't see much mountain cedar if cold fronts don't really drive in. But still, ash, mulberry, and oak are all light. That is a look at the pollen counts on this Saturday night. Good evening, Paul, Diane, David, and Castor. Yeah, if spring is here early, then summer will be arriving early. I know, right? If it's getting warm this time of year, then you can only imagine what June's going to look like, July's going to look like. Yeah, I know. Because some areas out west, I think tomorrow will probably hit about 92 to 93 tomorrow. Though not in San Antonio, we'll talk about that in detail in a little bit, but if you're watching from Cotulla, Del Rio, Eagle Pass, Carrizo Springs, I think in that southwest region of our viewing area, towards the Rio Grande, the air is drier and the air heats up faster, and I think tomorrow will be a pretty warm day. for winter standards because we're still in winter, and winter doesn't end until March 19th. So a little less than a month away. So those are the February averages. Live look around town. It is a quiet night. You can see the moon shining in our sky cam in the bottom left-hand corner. Let's double check something real quick. Good evening, Jennifer. Thank you for joining in and commenting below. Again, if you guys want to say hello, feel free to comment down below. Or also, if you have a question, feel free to join the conversation. We're talking weather on this Saturday night. I'm just double checking if what the moon phase is today. I know was it the snow moon earlier this month? I know we already had a full moon, but it is still pretty bright in illumination. As a matter of fact, tonight is the full moon. Between February 23rd and the 25th, the illumination is between 99 to 100%. So outside right now, you can see that full moon illuminating on our sky cam, bottom left-hand corner. So that's putting some light in the sky on the Saturday night, and it's looking very comfortable. Let's talk about weather and going forward. It's going to be warm. Tomorrow's going to be warm. We'll see a brief cool down by about Thursday and Friday, but it's not going to be anything cold. It's not going to be anything winter-like, unfortunately. Hayden, good evening. Thanks for joining in, and thanks for saying hello. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. It is a nice and comfortable night, and temperatures are nice and comfortable as well. 62 at Kerrville. It's a little warmer in Del Rio at 74. A little cooler in Eagle Pass at 66. Port Lavaca at 63. 55 already in Fredericksburg. So a light chill in the air, if you will, in the northern hill country right now. Anywhere from Kerrville pointing northward into west and north Texas. But radar, it's quiet. We have a few high-level clouds moving through. Nothing to be concerned about. The entire state, it is dry. Out west, though, as we lose the satellite feed because of sunset, especially on the west coast, you can see that spinning area of low pressure, right? The clouds kind of moving in that circular pattern, that counterclockwise motion. And that is a storm system that's pretty strong at the moment. But as we move through the next couple days, it'll weaken, it'll flatten out, and we'll show you kind of what that looks like on the upper level analysis. First and foremost, tomorrow, it's going to be the last Sunday of February, and then the last day of the rodeo. If you haven't been, take advantage. Tomorrow is going to be a beautiful day. The morning will be a little chilly, lower to middle 50s, but in the afternoon, lower to middle 80s. It's going to be really warm tomorrow. So, again, if you haven't taken advantage of the rodeo, if you haven't been, and you have nothing to do tomorrow, if you have no Sunday plans, go take advantage. It's a fun time. There's good food. Good live entertainment, of course, a lot of fun at the San Antonio Rodeo this time of year. And it's the last day to enjoy that as we're wrapping up that tomorrow. Here's tomorrow's timeline, up to about the mid-80s tomorrow afternoon. Let's rewind that back and put that at about 4 o'clock. And you can see it is going to be warm. So, we were talking about earlier, it could be 90 in some areas southwest. This is 4 o'clock tomorrow. For example, this model, it's a high-resolution model. It's saying Cotulla, Carrizo Springs, Eagle Pass, Del Rio, right around the 90 to 92 degree range. Way too warm for February standards. Towards the coast and towards Houston, a little bit more mild. Excuse me, but anywhere west of Bexar County, we're in this very dry air mass that with these west and northwest winds from earlier this week, that's driving in drier air, which led to a fire threat briefly earlier this week on Thursday and Friday. But now we're seeing the result of it, heat, and temperatures will be in the 90s for the next 7 days. Suzanne, good evening. Pipe Creek in the house. Good evening, Connie and Terry. Thanks for joining in. Paul, very bright moon. Yeah, it's a full moon tonight. So if you are watching, we have a full moon tonight. Skies are clear. If you have a telescope, if you're a photographer, it's a great time to take a picture of the moon. It is the winter moon, and let me see, I think it's called the snow moon just because of February. February full moon. Let's see. I think it is the snow moon. Yes, the snow moon will reach its full phase on Saturday, February 24th. So today is a full moon and is known as the snow moon. and it just represents the middle of winter, and it does not feel like winter. It feels a lot more like spring as temperatures have climbed into the 70s, 80s, and 90s in some areas around San Antonio, and that'll be the case for tomorrow as well. So let's talk about the forecast. So that low you saw out west over the Pacific Ocean, that'll move farther east, and as a result, that'll move in cloud cover Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. If you have any plans that during those days next week, most days will be dry. Things should go off without a hitch, shouldn't be a problem. But it looks like between Wednesday night and Thursday, a little batch of light rain will move through. Mostly just on and off scattered showers, and that's about it. Nothing heavy nor severe. No thunder is in the forecast. But Thursday may be a kind of a wet day. Not a soaker, but on and off rain here and there that's light in nature. And the sky should clear by Friday. And how much rain are we looking at? Not what we need. Obviously the drought situation has improved vastly. We're thankful. Last month was the second wettest January on record. We date back to the 1880s. So, yesterday we really rebounded in our rainfall and really improved the drought. I think we're at about moderate levels right now in San Antonio with some severe to extreme levels in the hill country. So we still have some catching up to do, and anything helps this time of year because when we go into summertime, that's when we look at a deficit, and we are behind on rainfall in June and July and August. So now is the time to catch up. Right now, the 7-day, we're not catching up. I think will be more warm than anything, and will be drier than anything. And it looks like if we do see rain late Wednesday night and throughout the day Thursday, periodically just kind of clouds and rain, light activity here and there. And then by this time next weekend, skies clear, temperatures above average in the 70s, and then that is the first day of March on Friday, next Friday. So again, spring begins officially on March 19th, so we're a little less than a month away from the onset of the spring season, but you can see the 7-day looks a lot like spring as we're looking at 80s through tomorrow, Wednesday and Tuesday, a little cooler Wednesday and Thursday. So the only seasonably cool day that feels a little like winter will be Thursday, thanks to a cold front and also a little bit of cloud cover and some rain-cooled air. So I think Thursday will be one of those days. Of course, have the umbrella handy if you're going back to work, but also if you're staying home, enjoy it because I think Thursday will be the only day that feels like winter. Every other day through early March right now looks to be warmer than average. Mornings will be chilly, don't get me wrong, especially late next week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday mornings. 40s and 50s for overnight lows, but high temperatures way above average in the 70s and 80s. What do you attribute the mild weather to? Earlier in the season, late November, early December, we were looking at El Nino. And El Nino typically means specifically during the winter months, wetter and cooler than normal. We got the rain. Last month was wet, and it was actually pretty cold back in January last month. But this month, it looks like El Nino is really backing off, and La Nina is starting to nudge itself in. And when you have La Nina, while it's not immediate, it's a gradual progression and change over months of time. When you start to see that vast change between that different pattern in the ocean, that impact on Texas weather usually means drier conditions and then warmer conditions. El Nino means cooler and wetter. La Nina means warmer and drier. Again, you don't really see that change happening that fast. We're seeing a pretty warm February. We have seen a warm February, and I think because of just that backing off of El Nino, the pattern change that's happening pretty quickly, that also will have an impact on our hurricane season, which we'll talk about later in the coming months in spring. But I think the drastic change between El Nino backing off and the increase in the probability of La Nina is resulting in a drier and warmer end of February and end of winter, as again, spring starts in less than a month on March 19th. So I think that's the result and effect of what La Nina and El Nino are doing to Texas weather and the South as a whole, especially here in San Antonio. Why were we so frozen? Last year, we talked about this earlier before we started the forecast. So here's kind of a look at so far. Now, this is going to change, obviously, from city to city. And if you're watching from the Hill Country, Kerrville, Fredericksburg, you've seen a lot more freezes this season because of the higher elevation and just the difference in topography across South Texas. But so far, San Antonio has picked up 9 total freezes. Last year was 10, so we're very similar to last winter's. While it wasn't as cold, we still have seen similar numbers in regarding overnight lows and the amount of freezes we've seen in one given season. The average is 15, and the most freezes in one season was back in 1966 to the 67 season. And that one winter, San Antonio picked up 43 total freezes, 32 or below, throughout December, January, and February. So while it hasn't been an incredibly cold winter, it has been wet, which is a byproduct of El Nino, but it usually does mean cooler weather. We just haven't seen that really in San Antonio and for most of the state as well. Of course, thank you so much, Dan. Linda, good evening. Hope you're having a wonderful night. Thank you so much for the kind words. And yeah, so we'll leave it on the 7-day a little longer, guys. We'll be on again at 10 o'clock tonight. Tune in to KENS 5 News at 10. But just to reiterate, tomorrow will be a beautiful day. Take advantage. It's going to be a beautiful day. Spend it outside. Highs in the 80s, a little warm for winter, obviously. Same thing for Monday. More clouds on Tuesday, mostly cloudy on Tuesday. Same thing for Wednesday. Maybe a sprinkle possible Wednesday as cooler air drives in. And I think Thursday will be the coolest out of the next 7. Highs in the lower 60s, below normal. Lows will be near normal in the middle 40s for overnight temperatures. With scattered light rain on and off, that's about it. We're running at 40% on that rain chance. I don't think it's going to be all that impressive. But Thursday will be a little wet, and then skies should clear by Friday, Saturday. High temperatures back in the 70s and lows in the 40s. This is perfect weather to me. Really just gorgeous weather for February. I mean, obviously I like the cold, I like the winter, but I love spring and I love summer because of temperatures like this, 70s and 80s. Because when you look when we're in summertime, right? When we're in June, July, August, it's going to be 100 degrees, and we're going to look back and we're going to wish for 70s and 80s and sunshine, and that's what we have for this upcoming week. So enjoy it while it lasts, because it's not going to stay here forever. Beautiful weather for tomorrow. A little breezy, south winds up to 20 miles an hour with a rain chance coming up on Wednesday night and mostly on Thursday. For now, leave it on the 7-day a little longer, but one more question. Hayden, how does El Nino make hurricane season bad? So, La Nina and El Nino have an impact on two things when it comes to long-range forecasting: the winter season and also hurricane season. Now, when you have El Nino, that change in water temperature in the Pacific, because when you look at what El Nino and La Nina is, it's basically just the deviation of water temperatures off the coast of South America, off the coast of Peru. And in the Pacific Ocean, if it's warmer than average, it's El Nino. And if it's colder than average, it's La Nina. Now, that difference in water temperature creates a difference in air pressure, because if it's cooler, it creates a difference in pressure above the water. And, we call that a teleconnection, because this small change in one part of the world makes changes elsewhere in parts of the world, like in Texas. And also during hurricane season, it makes, as it changes the air pressure, air patterns, wind flows, this will create a difference in wind shear in the Atlantic Ocean. The change happens in the Pacific, but as we talked about, it's a teleconnection. It changes one thing here and then changes another thing there. So what happens is in El Nino, there is more wind shear in the Atlantic Ocean, which decreases the amount of hurricanes we see in one season. So El Nino is pretty good. It means less hurricanes. It creates less wind shear. Now, it creates more wind shear, and then it creates less hurricanes. Now, La Nina means cooler temperatures in the Pacific, but it means less wind shear in the Atlantic, which allows for hurricanes and tropical storms to blossom and strengthen, and that's not good, right? That means we have to track more storms and hurricanes in June, July, August, and September. So the fact that we're trending towards a La Nina phase, so what the latest prediction has sent out from NOAA and from the Hurricane Center, I think recently, that means probably an average or an above normal season in the Atlantic. So these storms that work off the coast of Africa, they move towards the Caribbean Sea, they move towards the Western Atlantic, Bermuda, the east coast of the United States, and the Gulf of Mexico. And when they tap into warm water at the surface, that's going to mean more hurricanes and more storms. So it looks like this upcoming Atlantic hurricane season will be pretty active because of less El Nino and more La Nina. So that's kind of a brief overview. It's hard to explain when I don't have a graphic, but that's really what it comes down to. El Nino means warmer water in the Pacific, and that means more wind shear in the Atlantic, and that inhibits storms. La Nina means cooler temperatures in the Pacific and less wind shear in the Atlantic, and that means more hurricanes and more tropical storms. It's a lot to unpack, but that is basically what it comes down to. And the effect of water temperature in one part of the world, how it affects wind pressure and air pressure and water and everything around the world. Just one change in one part of the world can affect things elsewhere globally. It's incredible. It's what we call a teleconnection. It's really cool. All right. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Sonia, of course. That is the 7-day forecast. Norma, of course, you're welcome. Joanne, you have a wonderful evening as well. Thank you so much for the kind words. If you have any more questions about hurricane season, Hayden, I feel free to comment down, or you can always message me on social media. I love talking about the subject. It's just so hard to dive deep into detail when I don't have much time. And of course, we're getting ready for the KENS 5 News at noon, News at 10 show tonight. So in the next hour, we'll be live. But of course, when hurricane season starts in the next few months, we'll talk more about that. It begins officially on June 1st, the Atlantic hurricane season. I believe the East Pacific hurricane season begins on May 15th. It begins a little earlier, just off the coast of Mexico in the Pacific Ocean. So that's also something to, that's another conversation to have. Like, why does that hurricane season start faster than the Atlantic hurricane season? So there's always something to talk about, especially in the weather. But our weather stays warm for the next few days, highs in the 80s, with a chance at rain and some cooler air on Thursday. Yeah, of course, Hayden, you're welcome. Thank you so much. Again, feel free to message me if you have any other questions. For now, we'll leave it on the 7-day forecast a little longer. For now, we'll see you later, and have a wonderful weekend and have a wonderful night.